Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of my studio workshop series. In this episode we're going to look at how I recreated the main titles from the 80s movie Flight of the Navigator, a track originally composed by Alan Silvestri. So I'm going to show you the various synths I used and the sounds I used and how I built up the arrangement, how I mixed the song and finally how I recorded and mastered the tune. My studio workflow can be summarized as I mix before I record. I basically built up a studio where I can use my analog synthesizers like they were plugins or VST instruments. So all my synths are connected to a digital mixer and they are controlled by MIDI interfaces. So my DAW, Cubase, works mainly as a MIDI sequencer from where I can control the synths and automate the mixer. So why do I do it this way? It's a quite complex way, to be honest. And it all comes down to sound. I respond very strongly to how an instrument sounds like, and it affects the way I play. You can think a bit like a guitar player, an electric guitar player. An electric guitar player always plays through a lot of pedals and amplifiers, and he responds to what the final sound sounds like. He could never play the same thing just like line in without any effects and then add effects later on. But that's what mostly happens with synthesizers. You usually record them first and then you start adding effects to it. But I want to do it the other way around, a bit like a guitar player, because it has an enormous effect on how I play the synths. So this setup enables me to play with more or less the final sound. So I can play the synths with all the effects, EQ and processing on. And I know that this is how it will sound like in the end, and I can really respond to how and react to what the synthesizer sounds like. If you haven't done so already, please check out my first video in this series, the studio setup video. There I'm explaining in detail how everything works in my studio and how everything is connected. This track is part of my Synthesizer Legends Volume 1 album. The album consists of covers of various tunes that I find legendary in one way or another. This particular tune is one of the hidden gems. It's one of the tracks that you think you have heard, you might have heard something about it, you might have seen the movie, but you can have a difficult time to remember what was that track like again. For me, it was Tim Burden who suggested me to make a cover of this song. And when I heard about it, I was like, I actually have no idea what that track is. And then he tried to dig it out, and it wasn't that easy to find, but he found one version on YouTube, I think, and showed me it. And then I was like, oh yeah, I think I remember this cover. I have definitely seen the movie like many years ago. And the title track was quite nice, and I thought it was really fitting for this album. So thanks to Tim for suggesting it. So first I imported the original track into Cubase because I wanted to analyze the arrangement. So I split it up into various sections, and then I colored the sections and tried to identify which sections were which. And I found out that the song structure is quite simple. It consists of an A part, a B part, which is a chorus, and then a C part, which is a bridge. So the A part is also used as an intro. And then we have the main melody coming on the A part. And then we have a chorus part. And then we go back and repeat the main part, the A part, with the melody. And then there is a C part, which goes into the chorus section. And then the intro is repeated. And then the ending consists of the A part without any melody. And that is repeated twice. So for my version, I wanted to make it a bit longer. I decided to keep the arrangement close to the original. So until the intro part comes again as a break, the structure is the same. But then after that, I decided to use the A part a third time as a solo part. So I have a guitar solo coming on that section, and then I have the bridge coming after the A part, and the solo continues over the bridge part. And then I repeated the chorus twice before using the intro part again as an ending. So that's how I modified the arrangement for my cover. So when I start building up an arrangement, I usually start with what comes easiest to me, or something that is really important for the song. Now, I had, for some reason, decided to do everything using only analog synths and analog drum machines, basically because that has become my expertise. And then I also realized that, well, actually, I think I can do the whole album again using only analog synths and analog drum machines. I don't need anything else. But this particular tune has quite a lot of digital synths as well in the original, and the main important thing in the song, I think, is the bass part, because the bass is really like in your face. The bass is kind of really dominating an FM type of bass, and I thought that, okay, let's make an analog FM bass. So I came up with something that sounds like this. So I managed to get quite close to the original, and I'm quite happy with the sound. The sound is actually analog FM using the Polybrute. And the sounds consist of two different layers. So if we listen to, let's put it as a split, and go back to mono and listen to... this is the one of the layers, and the second layer sounds like this. The first layer is kind of providing the bass, while the second layer is providing the attack portion and kind of the bright sounds. And together they sound like this. But then the original feels quite wide. It's really like a wide stereo spread on the bass. So what I did was I put the bass into unison, and I stereo spread the unison. So then it sounds, the final result sounds like this. Now the verse part is really simple. The A part is really simple to play. But the B part, the chorus part, that was really difficult to pick out, because first of all, the quality of the audio that I had wasn't that good, so it was really difficult to hear what is it being played, and there was a lot of trial and error and comparing, and then what I eventually came up with was that there is a lot of half notes, semi-notes being played. So the chorus riff goes like... Let's take that slow. So quite a special B part, but that really makes the song, I think. So while editing this video, I picked up my bass guitar and started jamming on it. And then I realized that the riff makes total sense if you are a bass guitar player. Now, I'm not a bass guitar player, but it makes sense even for me. So check this out. And then the refrain. So there you have it. The second most important sound, I think, is the piano sound. And I came up with something that sounds like this. That consists of three different layers. So first I have a JX8B piano sound. That makes up the main body, I would say, of the piano sound. Then I have a Marion Pro synth, and that sounds like this. So that makes up kind of gives kind of sparkle to the sound, and also it gives quite a lot of brightness. Together, those two sound like. That's already quite close, but then I felt like there's something missing, and I kind of wanted it to be more, how to say, to take up more space even. I mean, because there isn't any bass note being played in the intro, so I wanted it to have some bass as well. So what I did was I put an Alpha Juno 2 on it with a really strange sound that sounds like this. That's not piano at all, but it works, because when you combine this with the other two sounds, you get something like this. So then we have the bass and the piano, which are the main instruments needed for the A part. And then let's go to the drums to complete the A part. So first I have a kick drum. The kick drum is from my Jomox Airbase, and it sounds like this. So quite a nice rock kick type of sound. The processing I have on this is the same that I always use, more or less, on my kick sounds. I've showed this in previous videos. For instance, check out the Power Run workshop video. I go through my kick and snare processing in detail there. So I'm just referring to that video for now. So it goes through an equalizer, and then it goes to a compressor, and then it goes through an multiband compressor that I have here. That's basically it. For the snare and toms, I really wanted a Simmons type of drum sound, and I explored that already on Urban Dreams and realized that the xenophones, the hypersynth xenophones that I have, are really good at making Simmons type drum sound. So the snare drum sounds like this. Okay, there's quite a lot of happening here, but let's perhaps start with the effects. So first it goes through an equalizer, without it, with it. Then it goes through a compressor, which brings out a lot of attack. Then I have a transient designer, which it goes through without it and with it. So that really adds a lot of attack. And then finally a selection of reverbs. So let's take out all the reverbs and then add them. First two reverbs from the M200i. Then the lexicon, and then the internal room. So all this makes quite a nice blend of sounds that I wanted to have. And when I program the sound, I normally program it having the effects on, and all the send effects, all the dynamics, because then I can much better hear if I'm going in the right direction. So let's look at what makes up the sound. This is the editor of the xenophone, which makes it easier for me to explain what I'm doing and what you are hearing. So as you can see, there is many envelopes, and this is really important for programming drums, especially because you can also change the style of the envelope. So which means the kind of the type of slope. Do you want a linear slope, or do you want a more exponential type of slope, or something in between? And perhaps the main important thing for making Simmons type of drums is to have the pitch of the oscillators being controlled by an envelope. I have the filter envelope controlling the pitch. So if I take away all control of the oscillators, this is the basic sound. Now you can hear there is no pitch change. But when I add envelope control, Now you can hear it. So this really makes the main. This is probably the main ingredient of a Siemens type of drum. Now let's see what this sound or the oscillators is made up of. So let's take away the resonance, the oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and then the feedback, ring mod, and also the noise, white noise. So there's still some white noise coming through because I'm probably modulating it with an envelope at some point. Anyway, let's turn them on one by one. First the oscillator. It's already a bit distorted. And the noise, that of course is a really important element of a snare drum. Then we also need resonance. In itself it doesn't sound so nice, but when we add ring mod and especially feedback through the filter, then it tames the resonance. So that's the snare sound. Then for the tom sound, I'm using the second xenophone, and the basic sound is the same. I've just adjusted the envelopes and the filter and a bit of all the settings, slightly adjusted, and that sounds like this. So really a Siemens type of drums, tom sound. And there is a couple of additional modulations here. For instance, because I only have two xenophones, so I need to think about what I want to use them for. So for instance, I can only assign one xenophone for doing all the toms. But usually you want to have many toms and you want to have them stereo spread. So what I have is that I've made the panoration, the balance, follow the keys really heavily. So if the higher up I go, you can hear that the sound moves to the left. And when I go down, again, it moves to the right. So I don't need to automate it. It's already, the panoration, it's just depending on which key I hit. There you have it. The channel strip is quite similar to the snare, but there are some differences. I chose to put the transient designer before the EQ, and the EQ is quite heavy on the mid. If we take away the drop, it sounds like this. There's really a lot of mid content that I wanted to scoop out to make it to sound more like a tom, like a processed tom. One important ingredient is the M200i gated reverb. This is what it sounds like without the M200i. And here's with. So that makes a huge part of the sound. There's also some other reverbs, one lexicon reverb and one room reverb, but I'm feeding it quite little from the tom, so the main sound comes from the M200i. So then the rest of the drum sounds are mainly hi-hats and cymbals, and they are a combination of the analog rhythm, the Syntakt, the TR-808 and the DRM-1. So quite a lot of drum machines just for the hi-hats and cymbals. But this time I wanted to try to make a bit more stereo effects using different cymbal generators. So for instance, I have the analog rhythm hi-hat here, and I chose to pan that to the left. And then I have the 808 hi-hat here, and together you get like kind of a spacious hi-hat sound, which I felt was quite nice. So I went with that, and then I did the same thing for the cymbals. So here's the analog rhythm cymbal. pan that to the left, and then the 808 symbol. No, sorry. There it is. And that's the ride. The pitch is quite different, but anyway, it goes together like this. So it gives kind of this really nice, spacious cymbal sound. And then I also added a DRM1 cymbal, but that's really just like a flavor. It's really quiet in the mix. But it has quite a long tail. And then together with the other sounds, it sounds like this. And then I finally got to use the cowbell. Yay! I never found any use for it so far, but for this song, it's not in the original, but I felt like there's something needed in the in the chorus section, and then I was like, what would it need? Ah, more cowbell, of course. The cowbell comes from the 808. Then the only drum sound left is the ones coming from the synth, and those are more effects, but I do have a short cymbal which sounds like this. Quite nice. And then I have kind of a long noise hit that I use in some places to accentuate the cymbals. And then in the beginning I have a riser, a noise riser basically, like that. And I doubled that, so I panned this one to the left, and then I have the same, exactly the same on the right, but because there are different noise generators, they sound like this. So you get a really nice stereo spread. Then we have everything we need more or less for the A part, and the intro and A part sounds like this. But there is still something missing, and that's the melody sound. So that's the melody sound, and this is the same lead sound that I use in Crockett's theme as well. The only difference is that I reduced the attack a bit, because there was a kind of a slight brassy feel of the original, and I wanted to retain that. So I think the original sound that I have for Crockett's theme is like this. Quite a fast attack. But for this sound I reduced, well, not that much, but I just had to show you what's happening to the sound. So we put it back, and I think I had it on 3. Really like hardly any difference, but anyway, I think I felt it when I played it, so then I was like, okay, I want to add a bit attack to the sound. The sound is made up to a large part of the Sunsamp GT2 on the floor. This is what the sound sounds like without the stomp box. So quite a different sound. You wouldn't think that would be a guitar sound, but it works really nicely because there are 2 oscillators beating slightly against each other. So you can hear that there is movement in the sound. Let me add the sustain here to maximum. Now you can hear there's a small movement in the sound which comes from a slight detuning in the oscillators. Okay, now I'm just exaggerating it. As you can hear, there is a really small detuning going on, and that creates a movement which is amplified in the stomp box, and that makes it sound really organic. But the sand amp really makes the sound. Really nice. I love that sound. There is some processing on the sound as well. You could hear, of course, the reverb and delay. The main important ingredient here is the gate, because without the gate it sounds like this. So there is a lot of noise which is amplified through the stomp box, and to get rid of that I have a gate which closes directly when I'm not playing the sound and opens when I'm playing it. Then I have some slight compression on it and an EQ that cuts away everything below 200. And I found that quite important just to, especially in this song, because the guitar sound is supposed to sound like it comes like perhaps a bit further away and shouldn't definitely not interfere with the almighty bass. So having it cut away at 200 already, and it makes room for the bass. And they blend together really nicely that way. Now the Poly 61 was the only synth that I didn't record as MIDI. The reason was that the pitch bend and modulation wheel, they don't send MIDI, so I can't record the performance as MIDI due to that. So I recorded multiple takes of my solo and melody playing, and then I put those together into one. So then we come to the B part, or the chorus part, and here the guitar drops off, so we need something else to support the piano. So I programmed a sound with my Alpha Juno 2 that sounds like this. That together with the rest, with the piano and the bass, sounds like this. But then I felt that this really doesn't cut it. This is like the chorus section, and in the original I thought I heard that there was some pad kind of, how to say, playing the melody, but not like prominently so. It makes it sound like it's part of the piano. So what I did, I just took the Oberheim expander and I made actually, I think I just picked a preset sound that I had in the machine that sounded quite close. And it sounds like this. So nothing special really, but when you add it, first without the expander, and now with, you start to get the hint of the melody there, but still not enough. So what I did was I overdubbed after everything was recorded, because I wanted to use the JX8P, but I already had it in use for the piano sound. So I overdubbed a second JX8P that sounds like this. And together with everything. So then we had all the ingredients that we needed for creating the chorus. Quite a lot of layers, but I think it paid off. I almost forgot to tell you about the C part. So the C part doesn't introduce any new elements, it just introduces new chord changes. And the C part goes like this. And then we go back to the A part. So then we have all the parts we need for the arrangement. So those were the main ingredients of the arrangement. Then the only thing left is the automation. And the automation in this song was really minimal because it's kind of a rock song. So it doesn't need to have a lot of, intricate automation. But there was one important thing, and that was the piano. And the piano really needed to be lifted during the parts when there is no guitar playing, and then it had to be kind of reduced during the parts where there is guitar playing. So that was the only volume automation I did. In addition to the effect returns, and it's really in the end, I wanted the effects to die away quickly. So I have an automation going like this. So it just drops the effect return in the end. So then the mix was ready. So when the mix is ready, then I'm ready to record. Typically I record about 10 tracks, some of them stereo, some mono, so that I have possibilities to adjust the track later, because usually at this stage I leave the song and start to work on other songs that are also coming on the album. So it might take months before I return to the song, and then there might be small adjustments I want to make in the mix. So having it recorded, having the mix recorded as stems, then I can adjust small things like putting more volume on the kick, less volume on the bass, and small stuff like that. Normally I would at that stage be ready for mastering, but for the album I wanted to add one more step, make it even more complex or fun, and this is what I did. So after I had recorded all the stems for all the songs, I did a second step of mixing, and this time I brought it out to an analog mixer. So you might be thinking that why an analog mixer all of a sudden? And it's just for having a bit of fun, to be honest. And I also wanted to really try to see that is there a difference with the analog summing and digital summing? Is it a difference that I can hear? And it turns out that I probably can't hear it, to be honest. I made a test for you. So first you're going to hear the mix as it sounds like when it comes out from the Mackie mixer. And then after 4 bars we are jumping to cubase mixing, and then after that we are jumping again back to the Mackie mixing. So first the Mackie. I don't think you will hear a difference through YouTube. I can hardly hear any difference here. The main thing I'm reacting to is that I feel like the kind of the treble spikes, there are less treble spikes in the Mackie mixing. It might be that it's in general a bit duller, but I feel like it's, it kind of gels slightly better, just a bit better. Is this a reason for getting an analog mixer and starting doing analog submixing? No, but I happen to have one, and one thing I'm amazed about is that the sound is actually good. I mean, I was thinking that okay, an old analog mixer might be a lot of hiss and probably not, as airy in the upper registers, but actually I'm surprised about how good it sounds. Let's listen more closer to the differences. So now I have just 2 bars in the cubase mixing, and then you will get 2 bars Mackie mixing, then again 2 bar, the same 2 bars cubase, and then again 2 bars Mackie. So let's listen. Honestly, the differences are, I mean, so minor that I don't think you are going to tell the difference on YouTube. Anyway, I feel it gels ever so slightly a bit better. But the fun thing then comes when I start to add using the equalizer on the Mackie mixer, and I'm using the equalizer. I have a tube equalizer that I'm inserting on some points, and then I run the whole mix through a bus compressor and an analog equalizer. But let's go back to the song, and I'm going to bring up all the faders on the Mackie mixer, and let's listen to the mix. So first the kick and the snare, and then we have the stereo bass. And then we have the synths, and the rest of the rhythm section, and then the melody, and then I have the stereo return effects for the lead separately than for the rest of the mix. So before going any further with the analog mixing, I want to show you what I did for the stems. I did namely some correction for the stems. So first of all, what you can see is that I have quite a lot of imaging. So basically on all the effect returns, I've widened the stereo width slightly, especially if you look on the main stereo return stem. So let's solo that one. This is with the imaging on, and now without. Very little difference, but it does in the mix. It works nicely, and you can see something weird here. There's a de-esser. And the reason why I have a de-esser is in this song in particular, I had a lot of problems with the snare and the high frequency of the snare, not in the actual snare itself, but in the return channel. So let's listen and see if we can hear it. So you can see here how it's working. If I take it off, you can hear there's more of the kind of high frequencies. And the reason why I use a de-esser is because it's only attenuates the signal at the snare, and because I felt it's the snare which is the problem. So that is quite a nice solution for that. And then you can see the bass channel looks horrible. It's like a lot of plugins, and I did all in my power to get the get it sound as wide and as magnificent as possible, because in the original the bass is really overpowered. I mean, the dominant, how to say, it's really dominant, but it's still not overpowering. So that was really difficult, kind of to get it as loud as possible in one way and as dominant as possible, but still make it feel like, yeah, that is how it should be, you know. So what I did was, yeah, I have a classic chorus here, but I mean, I didn't end up using that because I just realized, no, that's too much. So we can even remove it. But let's shut off everything else and listen to the bass first without any extra plugins. So I added a corrective EQ around 500, sorry, about 900, because I didn't want it to take the place of the lead. So kind of carve out a spot for the lead there, and then I added on a compressor to get it to beef it up a bit, and then I added some how to say, selective distortion. So the distortion is only in. Let me see now, I think I have it mainly in the upper registers. Yeah, because I have a band split on, so it's mainly distorting the higher frequencies. And you can't hear it, but if I pull it up, you can hear it better, the distortion. And it's kind of a really mild distortion anyway. And then in the end, I added even more an imager to get the bass even wider, and especially in the middle ranges. And then it started to like the sound. Then it felt like, okay, now it works. And of course, I did this with the whole mix sounding, because then it's easier to to see what you need to do to something. Sometimes I find it quite overwhelming. It's like there is so much happening here, and I hear something is wrong, but I don't know what is wrong. So what you can do, which is really efficient, I've noticed, is to just switch everything to mono. So when you switch the mix to mono, it's much easier to hear that where are the frequencies that are right now kind of disturbing, which are the problematic frequencies, especially if you're thinking about equalization. Turning it into mono is much easier to find the spots. I did it now on the mixer, but you can do it easily using a plugin as well, or in your DAW. Next, I'm going to show you how I set up the bus compressor and the stereo equalizer on the main mix. Let's go to the end and take one bar from the end, and this is going to sound a bit tedious because I'm just looping the same bar, but that way I can hear the changes when I start to turn on the mix bus compressor. So if you find this too tedious, you can just skip to the next section. But let's listen for now to this. I'm engaging the transformers as well on the bus compressor because I really like how they sound. I normally go for about 4 dB of reduction. Okay, that's probably not the best section to loop. I would like to have some more melodic things happening. Let's take 2 bars. I think I went last time with 10. I usually have quite a long attack, but this time it feels like even a shorter attack time of 3 milliseconds would work. I usually leave the ratio at 2 because I want it. I want the bus compressor to work. But then I usually use quite a small release rate. I'm using a high-pass filter on the sidechain input, so the master bus compressor is listening to a filtered signal and responding to that. And the main thing is so that it doesn't, otherwise it would respond too much to the kick drum. So let's see what it sounds like if I take away the filter. You can already see that the compressor is working much more because it's responding to the kick. And bass probably as well. But if I bring up, the more I bring up the filter, the less it's responding. I'm not sure if I think I used 105 or 125 for this one. Okay, and then let's listen to the song as a general and add some equalization to it. I definitely would like to add some bass. I usually boost around 60 Hz. Probably have a bit too much high frequencies right now, but on the other hand, the high frequencies are good when you're mixing because then you can find if there are any nastiness happening in the higher registers. So let's go to the analog mixing side. So what I did there, the main thing I did was I increased the middle of the bass to make so that the bass would come forward even more, and then I reduced roughly the same frequencies in the lower mid section of the bass to bring it so to make space for the bass basically. So let's listen to what it sounds like. So I'm activating the equalization and I'm going to cut low cut on the synths. The rhythm section I think I will leave, but especially on the stereo reverb sense on the lead, and the bass can have the low cut off. But then let's engage the equalization on everything and then bring up the mid in the bass. So now you get the bass even better. And I'm going to increase it to about 350 because I think that's quite a nice region, perhaps a bit less. Okay, but now we have a bit too much happening in the mid section, so we could reduce it in the other channels. Can you hear that the bass sounds even so loud so that we can actually reduce the bass slightly in volume? So one thing I noticed with the lead was that the lead had far too little, body perhaps. I mean, it doesn't sound strong enough. So what I did, I inserted the tube equalizer, a tube equalizer on the lead. Let's listen to what it sounds like when I engage it. So the tube EQ is just inserted on a channel on the, let me see, so it's channel, it should be channel 10. So now it's on. Let's boost the 800 area. Okay, that's too much. And then we can cut a bit to make it more sharper. So that gives more body to the sound of the guitar lead. I did some automatization as well because I had some in the effect return. I realized that the toms were coming forward too much. So you can hear that sound came too much forward earlier, so I had to put some volume dips in those places on the return channel. And it works really nicely. I think that's the danger because I wasn't using the mix bus compressor when I recorded the song. And I wasn't either using an equalizer, but I think it's if you have the possibility, and of course if you're working with a DAW, then you can put the have a master chain, a master bus compressor and an equalizer on your mix bus while you're working. For me, I didn't have the processing power in my X32 mixer, so I couldn't put an extra, and I didn't have these units at the time, and actually these are also, I've just borrowed these for the moment. But it's really good if you can mix with them on, because when you mix through the equalizer and the mix bus, I've noticed that you get a sound which is much more closer to the final master, which means that you can early on, when recording and mixing, you can find problematic spots. That many of these are things that usually come to me first in the mastering stage. I'm like, what's that noise? I never heard that before because I didn't have have that much brightness on, for instance, or didn't have that much compressor on the compression on the mix bus. So when you have some mix bus compression on and equalizer on, then you can hear much better also these problems and attack the problems already while you are recording and working on the basic mix. So this is more or less how I mix the song with the analog mixer. Let's go back then. What I did then, I recorded everything as a stereo track. So you can see the stereo track here, call it Mackie version 2.13 or something, because I take always several. You can see there are many takes here, because I always find something that I want to fine tune and I realize, this is perhaps not working. And sometimes I realize first in the mastering stage that, okay, there is some things that I can't remedy with mastering, so I need to take one more pass with the analog mixer. So let's see what I did for the mastering. I'm just going to go briefly through this. So what I did, again, I still felt I had a lot of problems with the high ends. So I added a lot of plugins. I took another de-esser. And again, the de-esser is working on now on the main mixer. And you can see it's attenuating at the snare again, because the snare was so loud, and it's attenuating around 4000 hertz. And I felt that worked quite well. I added some extra. To be honest, I think I recorded with a bit too much high frequencies, so I took down took a high shelf and took down a few dB on 8 kilohertz and above. And some minor adjustments to the EQ, and then I added Synth, which is a plugin that kind of removes like phasing ugly digital frequencies, and we can listen to what it does, because you can actually just listen to what it removes. So this is without. This is with the plugin. And this is what it removes. So this is the stuff that it removes. So it's not like stuff that you would miss. It makes it sound a bit nicer, I think. And so that's what I put on the mix before putting on the actual master. And I'm not going to play it back here because my computer isn't powerful enough. But anyway, let's look at the master chain. I'm using Ozone for mastering. Again, I put some low-end focus on, because it makes it a bit more punchier. So without the low-end focus, what we did on, can make it more punchier. The equalizer I didn't need to do much equalization, except that I did reduce again the high frequency. Took a high shelf around 8000 and reduced it a bit. Again, I have one more dynamic or one dynamic EQ as well, and I noticed that there was, except for the 4000 frequency plays, I also had around the 12,000. And what this does, you can see it activates mostly around the snare. So it's not much, it's just dipping a bit in 12,000 around the snare. Again, I have imaging on to make it a bit wider in the middle, and I'm also reducing the everything below 120 Hz to mono to make it vinyl compatible. And I'm using a match EQ, which I told you about in the previous workshop video. Just a bit to make it more in line with my reference. And then I'm putting multiband compression and limiting on. So that's how I recreated the Flight of the Navigator's main theme for my Synthesizer Legends Volume 1 album. It could probably have been done a lot easier, faster and cheaper than this, but I just wanted to show you the way I did it. I hope you found something interesting. And if you have any questions, feel free to write in the comment field below, and I will do my best to answer them. So stay tuned and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want more of these workshop videos. So until next time, bye bye.